Penn State, Oregon.
That's it. Oregon at Penn State. Penn State laying 3.5 right now. Let's hear it.
So I know all of the conversation for Penn State is going to be, can James Franklin win a big game? And then if there is any other discussion with Penn State, it's they haven't covered the spread yet. They haven't looked good against the competition that they faced, and it's been a very easy schedule for the Nittany Lions up to this point. And then meanwhile, Oregon's schedule has not been difficult by any means either, but they've looked better eye test wise and specifically against the number. So now you're going to have some people throwing a little bit of money line or sprinkling a little bit on the money line here for the Ducks, 3.5-point underdog. I think there's some flat threes out there for the Ducks as well as a 3-point underdog flat. So this is one of my game of the year lines from the summer. I made a video about this in early July. So my whole thinking for Penn State with this matchup here is, number one, I like how the Penn State offensive line matches up against the Oregon defensive line. I think Penn State's going to be able to run the football without much issue in this game. I also think Penn State has been playing possum. I know that's what the Penn State faithful is hoping for, is that they've been playing possum, which is why they haven't been great against the number. I'm here to tell you, I think that's exactly what's occurring or what's occurred up to this point for Penn State. This was something, John, that I talked about with you in the summer. Was I don't think Penn State's going to cover those large numbers in those first few games because I think they're going to hide their best stuff for this game. Why? Because in summary, this is an all-in effort for Penn State this season, and this is an all-in effort for Penn State in this game. If Penn State wins this game, especially if they do it where they send a message to the country. I don't want to say they win this game by 3 touchdowns or something, but if they win this game decisively, let's say they win by 10, 14, 17 points, that would send a message to the country. You know what? James Franklin just won a big game. Penn State came into the season with high expectations, and they are legit. And then you look at Oregon. There were a lot of people that were kind of fading Oregon coming into the season. Now, obviously, that's higher expectations in relation to most teams across college football. But the Ducks had so much production to replace a much younger team facing a veteran team for Penn State on the road in the whiteout. At the beginning of the show, we talked about Dante Moore and how he struggles in these kinds of environments and in these kind of games. We've seen a much better version of Dante Moore up to this point for this season, but he hasn't faced a team like this season, like Penn State,
Oregon State, Oklahoma State. I mean, these are two of the worst teams in the country.
Northwestern.
Northwestern, they're right there.
Look, I know that lakefront can be intimidating with that 15-mile-per-hour wind, right? Well, there's going to be a lot more of that intimidating factor in the whiteout. But my biggest thing here, John, I just think Penn State's going to have an all-in effort in this kind of game. I think they are going to send a message to the country and set, at least for the short term, a new standard at their program, because this is Penn State's year. Well, this is Penn State's game to prove it that it's their year. Give me Penn State minus 3.5. I don't care that there's a hook. That was that's the bet that I made in the summer. So I'm stuck with that because there's some flat threes now. So for y'all, for your sake, for the viewers watching this video, take Penn State minus 3, obviously. But I have Penn State minus 3.5 as my best bet that I've already placed. I think Penn State's going to win this game decisively, John. Now, whether that's by 10, 14, 17, we'll see. But seriously, I do think Penn State wins this game by at least a touchdown.
How do you think Drew Aller's going to do against that Oregon defense?
Okay, so I talked for a few minutes there and didn't even talk about Drew Aller. So
yeah, I mean, because he's the he's the X factor, but not in like the game-changing X factor kind of way. It's either he plays amazing and Penn State wins, or he's terrible, which happens often, and they lose this game. So how do you think he's going to do against that Oregon defense. They got a lot of NFL players back there.
Yeah, but this is a much younger team for Oregon, so it's future NFLers. I'm going to be much higher on Oregon next year than I will be this year. I think Oregon's a year away, and I think this is Penn State's year. So honestly, and I'll talk about Aller here in a second. This bet for me, preseason game of the year line, has just as much to do about me not trusting Oregon this early on in this spot, and then me loving Penn State because of this spot for the
Mm-hmm.
Nittany Lions against the Ducks. So this isn't me like hyping up like this Penn State team is going to be, one of the all-time juggernauts and I'm tailing Penn State. No, this is like this is just a spot play. It's a very specific scenario here against a much more youthful Duck squad.
Yeah.
But now in regards to Drew Aller. My opinion of Aller hasn't really changed at all, but I think because of what I don't have trust in Oregon up to this point, I don't think Aller has to be amazing in this game for Penn State to win. I think Aller's going to do his job. Penn State went out in the portal, got those experienced receivers, namely the guy from Syracuse. They got another guy from from Troy.
Because
They got a guy from USC.
they lost their two top receivers. They transferred
Yeah,
last
but
year.
they brought in a few transfers, all upperclassmen. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
scroll down to Penn State here. So they brought in Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Kyron Hudson from USC, and then Devontae Ross from Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Then Luke Reynolds, the tight end, has been the third leading pass catcher. But the top three receivers, as predicted, have been Pena, Hudson, and Ross, but especially Pena and Hudson. They've been good up to this point, those two, and I think Nittany, the offensive coordinator for Penn State, came from Kansas a couple of years ago. I think he's been saving his best stuff for this game. So I think you're going to see some new plays for Penn State in this matchup. I think Drew Aller, I don't want to say he's going to have like a fantastic performance where it's like, oh my gosh, Drew Aller for Heisman, but it's more like, okay, Aller, we see you. You had a good game. You showed out well, but it was more like the team effort. It was a team
Yeah.
totality effort. And I think with that, it's going to be Hudson, Pena, maybe Ross makes a couple of explosive plays. My biggest takeaway, though, is I think Penn State's defense is going to have a brilliant performance against a much younger Oregon offense. And I think, John, Penn State's going to be able to run the football against the Ducks. Oregon's biggest unknown, I don't want to say it's a weakness. It's not a weakness, but their biggest non-strength up to this point in the season is their defensive line. I think Penn State is going to be able to run the football for $150, maybe even more in this game. So, yeah, give me Penn State minus 3.5. I think they win this game decisively.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I disagree with you, but I'm just not a Drew Aller fan. But I'm also not a Dante Moore fan. I know he was terrible for UCLA last year, and I think a lot of his weaknesses kind of get hidden because he's playing with a bunch of like great players. So I'm very interested to watch this game. Um, Maybe if this gets to 4, I might back Oregon. But right now, I don't really have a play on this one. I like your handicap on it, but Drew Aller, James Franklin is just not a cocktail I'm willing to sip on Saturday night. I don't think.
Final score 34-17 Penn State.
34-17. Okay, so nice, comfortable win for the Nittany Lions, taking advantage of a young Oregon team and a young quarterback, Dante Moore.
I think one of the reasons why I'm confident saying 17-point spread, or I don't want to say I'm confident saying that. It's my score prediction, right?
Yeah.
But it's a gut. It's not like I have a model here that's showing me Penn State's going to cover this spread by this much because of this and that. No, it's like it's a gut feeling because we've seen James Franklin. He's pretty aware of what the spreads are and
Yeah.
situations. I don't think Penn State is going to take their foot off the gas here. So yeah, and I just don't see Oregon scoring many points, and I think Penn State could run the football with a lot of success here, and I could see Penn State's defense also getting a score here against Dante Moore. I mean, I could also see like 31-17, like maybe it's a 14-point differential,
Mhm.
13, maybe it's like 30-17. So maybe it doesn't quite get up to that 17-point differential, but you know what? I thought 34-17 in the summer, so I'll stick with it. But again,
I
Penn
like
State
it.
decisively by a couple scores or so.